Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive.
Mm.
Today, we're going to be getting our hands dirty with a topic that's pretty fundamental to all of us,
Yeah.
and that's plant and soil.
Yeah.
We all need to eat.
Yeah.
We're going to be looking at some really interesting research papers
Okay.
about this thing called nanohydroxyapatite,
Okay.
or nanoHA for short, and how this is really changing the game when it comes to agriculture. Are you ready to dig in?
I am definitely ready to dig in. This is such a cool topic, and
Yeah.
it's amazing how something so small can have such a big impact on how we grow our food.
Right. It's almost counterintuitive.
Yeah.
So just to give everybody a little bit of background, the sources that we're going to be diving into today are all focused on this nanoHA, which is a type of phosphorus nanofertilizer.
Right.
And I think most people know phosphorus. It's an essential nutrient for plants. But the thing is, with traditional fertilizers,
Right.
sometimes that phosphorus can get locked up in the soil,
Exactly.
and the plants can't really access it as efficiently.
Yeah, it's almost like it's there, but it's just out of reach.
Right? It's tantalizingly close,
Yeah.
but they can't quite get to it.
Yeah.
And so that's where this nanoHA comes in, because with its incredibly small size, it's able to really easily reach the plant roots and deliver that phosphorus much more efficiently.
Yeah, the way I like to think about it is nano-HA is like a key that unlocks the phosphorus that's already in the soil.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Yeah. So it's not necessarily about adding more phosphorus. It's about making sure that the phosphorus that's already there is available to the plants.
And that's a really important distinction because, a lot of times we think more is better.
Right.
But in this case, it's about bioavailability. It's about what the plants can actually access.
Yeah, and the studies that we're looking at today, they actually show some really impressive results in terms of how nano-HA can increase that bioavailability.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the studies that really caught my eye was the one that focused on maize.
Okay.
And they found that nano-HA significantly increased the biomass of these maize plants, as well as their chlorophyll content, which is what gives plants their nice green color. And it also increased the bioavailable phosphorus that they could take up.
So not only were the plants bigger and healthier,
Right.
but they were also able to access more of the nutrients that they need from the soil.
Exactly. So it's a win-win all around.
Yeah.
And this isn't just limited to maize, though. There are other specific species that seem to really thrive with nano-HA.
Yeah.
We're talking about soybeans, sunflowers, tomatoes, barley. They've all shown positive growth effects.
It's really amazing the range of plants that seem to benefit from this technology.
Yeah, it really does seem like a versatile tool for boosting plant growth.
Yeah.
And you mentioned earlier how something so small can have such a big impact.
Right.
And I think that's one of the things that's so fascinating about nanotechnology in general.
Yeah, it's like a whole new world that's opening up to us, and we're just starting to scratch the surface of its potential.
Absolutely. And it's not just about making plants bigger either. It's about making the soil healthier too.
Exactly. Healthy soil is the foundation of a healthy ecosystem.
Right. So how is this tiny nano-HA actually improving soil quality?
One of the things that the studies show is that nano-HA can dramatically increase the amount of bioavailable phosphorus in the soil. I think one study found like a 12.7-fold increase.
Wow, that's
which is huge.
incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a game changer.
And it's not just about the phosphorus either.
Right.
Nano-HA also improves other important soil properties like electrical conductivity and the amount of organic matter that's present.
So it's giving the soil this revitalizing spa treatment.
Exactly. It's making the soil more fertile and more supportive of life in general.
I love that analogy. So, we're talking about soil health.
Right.
And of course, we can't forget about the microbes.
Oh, absolutely. The microbes are essential to a healthy soil ecosystem.
Yeah, there's a whole universe down there.
Right.
Teeming with life.
Yeah.
So does nano-HA have any impact on those microbial communities?
That's a really important question, and one that the researchers were very careful to address.
And how do they even study that?
Well, they used a technique called 16S rRNA gene sequencing to analyze the bacterial communities in the soil.
Okay.
So it's basically like taking a census of all the different types of bacteria that are present.
Oh, wow. I never even knew you could do that.
Yeah, it's a really powerful tool for understanding microbial diversity.
So what did this microbial census reveal?
Well, the good news is that nano-HA didn't negatively impact the overall richness of the microbial communities.
Oh, that's good.
So in other words, the diversity of bacteria remained intact.
Okay, that's a relief.
It wasn't wiping out important microbial populations.
Right, because you wouldn't want to be doing more harm than good.
Exactly. You want to make sure that you're not disrupting the delicate balance of the soil ecosystem.
Right, so it didn't disrupt the overall richness. But did it change anything about the microbial community?
Well, it's interesting because while the overall richness remains stable, nano-HA did cause a shift in the composition of the bacterial community.
Okay, so certain types of bacteria became more abundant
Exactly.
in the presence of nano-HA.
Yeah, it's like nano-HA was creating a more favorable environment for certain types of bacteria to thrive.
Okay. So who are the winners in this microbial shakeup?
Well, here's where things get really exciting. The bacteria that flourished were the beneficial ones.
Oh.
Specifically, we saw an increase in plant growth, promoting rhizobacteria, or PGPR for short,
Okay.
and also phosphorus solubilizing bacteria, or PSB.
Okay, so these are the good guys.
These are the microbes that help plants grow and thrive.
So it's almost like the nano-HA is setting the stage for this microbial party, and the guests of honor are the bacteria that boost plant growth.
Exactly. That's a great way to put it. And to give you a little sneak peek at the guest list, some of the bacterial groups that saw a boost include Burkholderia, Massilia cinnamonus, and Streptomyces.
Wow, I'm not even going to try to pretend like I know what all of those are.
Oh, that's okay. They're all fascinating in their own right.
Yeah, we could do a whole deep dive just on soil microbes.
Right, we could.
But the important thing is that they're the good guys.
Yeah, and they're helping to create a more supportive environment for plant growth.
Right, so nano-HA is not only delivering phosphorus directly to plants, but it's also helping to create this more supportive microbial community in the soil. It's pretty amazing.
It really is. It's like a multi-pronged approach to improving plant health.
Yeah. And speaking of which, there was a study that really caught my attention that focused on a specific plant, pak choi, which is this leafy green vegetable that a lot of people eat.
Okay.
So what was the focus of this study?
Well, this study was all about looking at how nano-HA could help plants cope with heavy metal stress in the soil.
Oh, that's interesting. Because heavy metals can be a real problem for plants.
Yeah, they can be toxic and they can accumulate in the plants, which can then be harmful to humans if we eat them.
Right, so they were specifically looking at cadmium in this study.
Yeah, cadmium is a particularly nasty heavy metal.
Okay, and they wanted to see if nano-HA could sort of be the hero in this scenario.
Exactly. Could nano-HA protect the pak choi plants from the negative effects of cadmium?
What did they find?
Well, the results were pretty impressive. Nano-HA actually increased the biomass of the pak choi plants.
Oh, wow.
It reduced the amount of cadmium that they absorbed.
Okay, so it's like it was giving those pak choi plants a shield against the cadmium.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And not only that, but it also boosted their levels of chlorophyll and vitamin C.
Wow. So it's like it was making them healthier overall.
Exactly. It was giving them a boost in multiple ways.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And how is it actually doing that? How is this tiny nano-HA pulling off these amazing feats?
Well, I think it's time to delve into the mechanism of action.
Okay, let's get into the nitty-gritty.
Let's do it. Well, it all comes down to nano-HA's unique properties. You know, its tiny size allows it to really easily penetrate those plant roots, and it can deliver the phosphorus right where it's needed most, to those plant cells.
So it's like this microscopic delivery system.
Yeah, it bypasses all those usual bottlenecks.
It's like a VIP pass for phosphorus, right?
Exactly.
Straight to the plant's inner circle.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also curious about how it interacts with the soil. We've talked about its impact on the properties of the soil and those microbial communities, but how's it actually working on like a molecular level?
So this is where it gets even more fascinating. Nano-HA has this really high surface area, and that means it can actually bind to and interact with all sorts of other molecules in the soil.
Oh, okay, so I'm picturing like a tiny sponge.
Yeah.
Soaking up nutrients and other important molecules.
That's a great analogy. And not only does it bind to these molecules, but it can also help release them slowly over time. And this creates a steady supply of nutrients for the plants.
Oh, so it's like a time-release fertilizer.
Exactly. It's providing nourishment for the long haul.
Wow, that's really clever.
Yeah.
As we're talking about nano-HA and all these benefits, I keep thinking about how we actually get it into the soil.
Yeah, you're thinking about the practicalities of application.
Right.
Which is super important. And there are different approaches that researchers are exploring. Each one has its own pros and cons. One method involves directly mixing the nano-HA into the soil before planting.
Okay, so you're basically enriching the soil right from the get-go.
Exactly.
I imagine that would be really beneficial for crops that have, a high phosphorus demand.
Right. And another approach is to coat seeds with nano-HA before you sow them, and this way, the nano-HA is right there at the root zone from the very beginning.
Oh, that's smart. It's like giving those baby plants a little backpack of nutrients to help them grow.
Exactly. And then researchers are also looking into foliar application, which basically means spraying a nano-HA solution directly onto the leaves of the plants.
Oh, okay, so that's more of a targeted approach.
Yeah, and this method allows for, more targeted delivery, and you can use it to address specific nutrient deficiencies during the growing season.
So you can give them a quick pick-me-up whenever they need it.
Exactly. But there's another exciting development that I wanted to tell you about. Scientists are experimenting with combining nano-HA with other beneficial substances to create what are known as multifunctional nanofertilizers.
And multifunctional. Okay, tell me more about these supercharged fertilizers.
Well, for instance, you can combine nano-HA with humic substances.
Okay.
And those are naturally occurring organic compounds that you find in soil.
Okay.
And these humic substances, they're known to improve the soil structure, and they can enhance nutrient availability, and they can even stimulate microbial activity.
So you're basically creating a power couple of soil enhancers.
Exactly. The goal is to maximize that positive impact on soil health and plant growth.
Right.
And the research shows that this dynamic duo is actually very effective. One study using maize found that this nano-HA and humic substance combo, it actually led to better early growth. They had higher grain yields, and they even had increased resilience to stress, like from salty soil.
So it's like giving those plants an extra layer of protection, to help them face those real-world challenges.
Exactly.
That's a win for farmers and the environment.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But, while we're celebrating these really incredible innovations, it's important to remember that we're still in the early stages of understanding nanotechnology and all of its implications for agriculture.
Yeah, it's not a magic bullet, right?
Yeah.
We can't just rely on nanotechnology to solve all the complex challenges.
And we also need to make sure that we're using it responsibly.
Right. So it's crucial to proceed with caution and to conduct really thorough research, just to ensure the safety and sustainability of all these applications.
Absolutely.
Because I know that there have been some concerns raised about, the potential risks of nanomaterials in general.
Right.
So what do we know specifically about the safety of nano-HA?
So that's a very valid concern, and it's one that the researchers are taking very seriously.
Okay.
And, the studies that we're looking at today, they suggest that nano-HA is generally considered to be biocompatible, which means it doesn't pose, a significant threat to living organisms.
Okay, that's reassuring.
Yeah.
Is there a reason why nano-HA seems to be safer than other nanomaterials?
Well, one reason is that nano-HA is chemically very similar to hydroxyapatite, which is a natural mineral.
Okay.
And this is a major component of our bones and teeth.
Oh, wow.
So it's not a completely foreign substance to biological systems.
So it's like our bodies already know how to interact with it.
Exactly. But of course, we need more research
Right.
to fully understand the long-term effects of using nano-HA in agriculture.
Okay.
And, scientists are conducting studies to see if there's any potential for it to accumulate in plants or to move into the groundwater.
Okay.
We need to make sure that we're not creating any unintended consequences.
Right. It's about finding that balance, between harnessing this incredible potential of nanotechnology while also making sure we're using it responsibly and sustainably. But beyond those safety considerations, I'm also wondering about the scalability of these applications. Can we actually produce and distribute nano-HA on a large enough scale to make a real difference in global agriculture?
That's a great question, and one that researchers and engineers are actually working on right now.
Okay.
And it's not just about, making enough nano-HA. It's also about developing methods for applying it, that are efficient and practical.
Right, because you've got different farming systems all over the world.
Exactly.
It's not a one-size-fits-all approach.
So, this is really a multifaceted challenge that requires collaboration across different disciplines.
Absolutely. We need scientists, engineers, agronomists, and farmers all working together.
Exactly. And, all of these technological advancements are really incredible. But, we can't forget that it's not a magic bullet, right? We can't just rely on nanotechnology to solve every problem.
We need to continue to focus on, those good farming practices and take a holistic approach to soil health.
Exactly. Like crop rotation, cover cropping, and reducing tillage.
Right, those foundational practices.
Exactly.
So it's about, integrating those innovations into a broader framework of sustainable agriculture.
Absolutely.
But even with all of those considerations, I have to admit, I'm really optimistic about the potential. I think nanotechnology could really revolutionize how we grow food.
I share your optimism. The research that we've looked at today is so promising. Just imagine, a future where we can grow more food with fewer resources. And we can reduce our reliance on those chemical fertilizers, and we can create agricultural systems that are much more resilient and productive.
That's a future I definitely want to be a part of. But before we get too carried away, dreaming about the future of farming, I want to just circle back to something we mentioned a little bit earlier. Those concerns about the potential risks of using nano-HA.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you can tell us about the research that's happening in that area?
Well, one area where there's a lot of active research is in exploring the interactions between nano-HA and soil microbes.
Okay.
And we know that it promotes the growth of those beneficial bacteria, but we really need to make sure that it's not having any negative effects on, other microbial populations, or that it's not disrupting that really delicate balance of the soil ecosystem.
Right. Those microbial communities are really the foundation of healthy soil.
Exactly.
And speaking of those microbial communities, I'm curious to learn a little bit more about those specific bacteria that seem to get a boost from nano-HA. You mentioned PGPR and PSB.
Yeah.
But, what do those acronyms actually stand for, and what do these bacteria actually do?
You're asking all the right questions. Let's break down those acronyms and really delve into the fascinating world of plant microbe interactions. Okay, so PGPR stands for plant growth promoting rhizobacteria. And these little guys, they live in the rhizosphere, which is this zone in the soil that surrounds the plant roots.
Okay, so it's like prime real estate for these microbes.
Exactly. It's like a bustling marketplace where the plants and the microbes are interacting and exchanging resources.
Oh, I like that. So what are these PGPR actually doing to help those plants grow?
Well, they have a whole bunch of tricks up their sleeves. Some PGPR produce hormones, and those hormones can actually stimulate root growth, which allows the plants to access even more water and nutrients from the soil.
Oh, that's pretty good.
And then other PGPR produce enzymes, and these enzymes help break down that complex organic matter in the soil, and that releases nutrients that the plants can easily absorb.
Oh, so they're like little chefs breaking down those complex molecules into bite-sized pieces for the plants.
Yeah, exactly. And some PGPR even produce antibiotics.
Oh, well,
And those antibiotics can protect the plants from harmful pathogens.
so they're like little bodyguards too.
Yeah, they're like a multi-talented crew down there in the rhizosphere.
I love it. So that's PGPR. What about PSB?
Okay, so PSB stands for phosphorus solubilizing bacteria. And these guys are really important because they help make phosphorus more available to the plants.
Right, because we know that phosphorus is essential, but it can often be locked up in the soil in forms that the plants can't easily access.
Exactly, and that's where PSB come in. They produce these organic acids that can actually dissolve those insoluble phosphorus compounds, and that releases phosphate ions that the plants can then readily take up.
Ah, so they're like little keys unlocking that phosphorus treasure chest.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And what's really interesting is that nano-HA seems to create a more favorable environment for both PGPR and PSB to thrive.
So it's like it's not just a direct source of phosphorus, but it's also a catalyst for boosting the activity of these beneficial bacteria.
Exactly. It's like nano-HA is conducting this whole symphony of plant microbe interactions that's leading to healthier soils and more productive plants.
It's amazing to think about all this activity happening beneath our feet that we don't even see.
Right. It's a whole hidden world down there.
A whole secret society of microbes working together to support life.
Exactly. And all of this is connected to something much bigger, the global challenge of food security.
Right, because as the population grows and the demand for food increases, we need to find ways to produce more food, but we need to do it sustainably and efficiently.
Yeah, and that's where these innovations like nano-HA can really make a difference.
Right. It's about finding ways to improve soil health, enhance nutrient uptake, and foster these beneficial microbial communities so that we can grow more food with fewer resources.
Yeah, exactly. And hopefully reduce our reliance on chemical fertilizers and minimize the environmental impact of agriculture.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's safe to say that we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have. We've really gone deep into the world of nano-HA.
From its tiny size to its big impact on plant and soil health.
Yeah, it's been a fascinating journey.
And I hope our listeners are walking away with a newfound appreciation for the hidden wonders beneath our feet and a sense of hope for the future of agriculture.
I think so, too. There's so much potential for innovation and positive change in this field.
And as always, we encourage everyone to keep exploring, stay curious, and let's all work together to create a world where science and nature work in harmony to nourish us all.
That's a great message to end on.
Thanks for joining us for another deep dive. We'll see you next time.